In the prior video, we shared how the state has decreased their funding to local districts due to rising property values. So what has Klein done to prepare for this decrease in funding? The district has been proactive in cost-saving and cost avoidance measures over the years. We've also sought revenue-generating measures to bring additional revenue into the district. Cost-saving measures include an ambitious energy management plan that has saved the district $20 million over the last 10 years, along with savings through improvements to preventive maintenance programs, standardization of equipment and supplies, and cross-department functional efficiencies of $950,000. Running a triple-tiered bus service saves the district $5 million annually and offsets the cost of purchasing additional buses that would cost the district around $10 million. Benchmarking auxiliary services against best practices also allowed the district to pinpoint areas for additional savings in custodial, maintenance, and ground services. Cost avoidance measures within the energy management plan and plant operations saved the district in excess of $32 million over the last 8 years. Revenue generated locally includes funds from facility rentals, the Klein ISD Education Foundation, and stadium advertising. We want to especially celebrate our wonderful Klein ISD Education Foundation that has poured more than $2.8 million into our schools via grants, professional development, the Reading Express, the STEAM Express, and other innovative educational experiences. The district prepared for some lean years knowing we were opening 4 new schools in 4 years. For example, over the last 2 years, Klein ISD used $28.9 million of excess fund balance, which is like our district savings account or the state's rainy day fund, in order to balance the budget. At the close of this school year, the fund balance is projected to be just above 25% of our expenditures, which is the lowest we can take it and still be within district policy. The 25% represents our payroll for roughly 2.5 months and is the recommended reserve amount by the Texas Education Agency and bond rating agencies. Continuing to use fund balance is not sustainable, of course. In fact, budget forecasting indicates that the fund balance would dip to 20% next year and drop to 9% within 3 years. This is not a prudent way for the district to manage our funds. And so the district continues to look for ways to fund the current level of service available to our students. As you know, the state funding system presents many challenges, and the state's contribution to public education has declined significantly over the last 10 years. Over these years, Klein has looked for ways to save and offset costs and to generate additional revenue. We've also utilized our fund balance to the lowest prudent level. So how can we continue to maintain the current educational programs and services for students? In this section, we'll examine the plan we have for moving forward. It includes both reducing spending and bringing in new revenue. Let's start with becoming even more efficient in our spending. In order to see where we were spending differently from our peers, we completed a peer group analysis. We found that, among other things, Klein ISD spends less in a number of areas, including central office administration and facility maintenance and operations. This allows us to invest more than our peers in areas that affect students most directly. And our analysis showed exactly that, as we invest more than our peers in instruction, counseling, security, teacher training, and school leadership. Over the next 3 years, our goal is to shore up the budget by $8 million, ensuring that the areas with which we become more efficient have minimal direct impact on students, such as budget areas like non-campus department budgets, staffing via attrition, among others. These strategic reductions will bring our spending into alignment with our peers. The shoring up is not enough to balance the budget, however. Even after spending $28.9 million of fund balance and an additional $8 million of planned budget reductions, we still find a recurring shortage of $22.2 million beginning with this year's budget. And so we move to the second part of our plan, to generate more revenue for the district by maximizing the state school funding system via a tax ratification election. This will allow the district to address the budget shortfall and avoid increased budget cuts for a number of years. When a tax ratification election, or TRE, is approved, it increases the amount of funding per pupil we receive from the state and allows us to utilize the state finance system to generate additional revenue. You'll recall that target revenue is a fixed amount that takes legislative action to increase. Well, when a TRE passes, that amount actually increases even more than the amount local taxpayers pay. Here's how it works. The tax rate has been at $1.04 for the last 11 years. The state allows for the adoption of a tax rate exceeding $1.04, but this requires voter approval in the form of a tax ratification election. When voters approve an increased tax rate above $1.04, the first 2 cents of that increase are what we call super pennies, and they allow us to maximize the state funding formula. You see, each normal penny of the M&O tax rate equals about $2.1 million in district revenue from local property taxes. However, the state funding formula for super pennies requires the state to match more than double the local contribution. So for the 2 super pennies, the district receives $4.2 million from local revenue and an additional $9.2 million in state funding, garnering a total of $13.4 million. In order to complete the budget picture, we're asking for an additional 7 pennies that yield local and state funding equal to $15.4 million, thus garnering $28.8 million. It also allows for 2 additional results. Moving the rate to $1.13 would accommodate the budget until at least 2021, meaning we would not need to do another TRE for at least another 3 years, and it would allow the district to accelerate some security projects at our campuses. Now, some security projects were already in the works from bond funds, but the timeline has been expedited ahead of the original schedule. These bond-funded projects include secure vestibules at the elementary school, entrance screening technology, and mod doors for all those elementary campuses as well. The funds from the TRE expedite secure vestibules at intermediate and high schools, entrance screening technology at intermediate campuses, and elementary school perimeter and playground fencing that were not in the 2015 bond plan, but were slated for a future bond referendum. Doing these projects now from the M&O budget saves more than $5 million in future bond interest. These additional funds also will assist in continuing additional police officers for intermediate and elementary schools and equipment for the police department. Should the TRE be ratified, these additional layers of security will be completed within 2 years. And what would this 9-cent increase cost? Well, the average home in Klein ISD is appraised at $200,000, and subtracting the $25,000 homestead exemption, the 9-cent increase is 43 cents a day, or $13.13 per month, which is roughly the cost of a 3D movie ticket. To find out the increase on your home, a tax calculator is available on the TRE website. And of course, our over 65 citizens who have applied for the exemption will see no tax increase. Now, Klein ISD is not alone in requesting to move beyond $1.04 in order to maximize the current school funding system. Statewide, over 500 districts, more than half, have passed a TRE. And locally, several districts are taxing above $1.04. And what happens if the voters do not approve the TRE? Since there's no room to dip further into fund balance and the state has not increased their funding, the district would need to cut the M&O budget. The $8 million in budget reductions will jump to $30.2 million, equivalent to around 525 staff. That equals roughly 8% of the current Klein ISD staff. Additionally, the planned TRE funded security items could only proceed with additional cuts. Now, that was a lot to cover, so let's recap. The state funding system for public schools has led to the state funding less than local taxpayers this school year. To make up for a fixed revenue system, Klein ISD has utilized our fund balance for the past 2 years to bring in the budget. But utilizing our fund balance is not a sustainable path forward. To bring in the budget for at least the next 3 years, we'll be following a specific plan of shoring up the budget by $8 million and increasing local and state revenues by holding a tax ratification election for 9 pennies. This plan will allow us to maximize the state funding formula, generate $28.8 million, and escalate security projects. The Board of Trustees is scheduled to adopt a tax rate at the May board meeting that would set the TRE in motion. Early voting and Election Day polling locations have not yet been determined, but will be publicized via the normal outlets. We encourage you to send us your questions using the Let's Talk link found on the TRE website. We're also happy to visit with community groups around this topic. You can request a community meeting for your group using the Let's Talk link as well.